And what about you? This is a Kia Sportage, or Sportage, as some people call them. And this is a new car to me in the workshop. The girl that owns this used to take it in our guides. It's now closed down. So this is a new car to me in the sense that I've never done any work on this car before. So I have no idea of the history, and the girl said that, you know, she did leave it in the somewhere local this year, and, you know, she trusted that they did whatever was necessary. So how do we look at the book here? See what we've got. There's a few entries in it, and I've blanked out the stamps there because this is not a name and shame, or we're not here to slag off people, or we're not here to keep people cowboys or anything like that. That's not the purpose. This is for me to get an idea of the history of this car, to see what's been done to it, what the problems are, and what the concerns are. So we'll have a wee bit of history here. 2015 here, at 13,000 miles. There's a stamp. There's no real, doesn't really tell you what's been done. And then again here, 2016, 23,000 miles there. That's come up camera okay, hopefully. And then we'll turn the page and we'll have this sort of recent stamp and a bit of writing on it here to tell us what it is. Now when I stamp a book, I write what I've done on it, you know, so it's just a stamp is a real bit meaningless really. But so here we have 57,958, so 58,000 miles. February 19, this is now December 19, and there's 65,000 on the car. So what's that, about 7,000 miles later or something? And we'll have air filter fitted and rear brake discs. Okay, nothing really much else to go on there. So the customer concerns with this car is she was going to go to Dublin to go to Florida or something, and she was worried that the car, she just says that this car isn't running right. It's shuddering, it's making strange noises, it doesn't seem to go right, and she thought maybe there was something wrong with the clutch or whatever, and she was reluctant to drive to Dublin, which is about 100 odd miles. She was worried that, you know, we wouldn't make it there. So she decided to get the bus instead, which she says worked out very well for her because it meant she didn't have to park or nothing like that, and just left the car at home. And whenever I got a slot, I got her father brought it around, and this is the first I had a wee look at it. So we've done a full system scan on it, and there was a couple of fault codes, usual air conditioning fault code, and another one which said engine oil level too low. I haven't got that recorded on the, I've done that with Autel, but it didn't save it. So you know, it's pretty straightforward. Just done a check and pulled the dipstick out, give it a bit of a clean, and no oil in it whatsoever, showing on the dipstick anyway. And the oil light wasn't on, the oil pressure light wasn't on, but whenever I drove it. But there you go. It just shows before you take a car for a test drive and you've no idea the history of it, dip the oil, check for coolant, do a couple of wee dopey checks there before you take it, if you're going to take it for a brisk drive anyway. So it took about 3 litres of oil to get it up to the fill level. Normally holds about 3.7 to 4 litres, this car. So it was very little oil on it. So yeah, so it makes you wonder, did this last service did they change the engine oil? It makes me think, why would you write the air filter and you wouldn't write the oil filter? And rear brake discs, no mounts in the pads. So yeah, so we put 3 litres of oil in it, and took it for a drive, brought up the temperature, and done a bit of braking. And whenever the brakes get up to temperature, I could start hearing a lot of noises that were sort of similar to what the customer was reporting. So we'll have a wee look at that. So after that bit of a drive, stuck a thermal imager on these front discs, and I could hear a bit of noise coming from these discs whenever they heated up. And the thermal imager, this is the front right, and it was showing over 200 degrees, thing glowing red hot. And as you can see from the colour of the disc here, this is the front disc. You can see from the colouring of the disc, it's kind of red looking, and that's a sheer sign this thing is cooking. And if I go to spin it, the thing's stone cold now, but if I go to spin it, yeah, it's pretty jammed. Okay, over to the front left now. Discs are bad shape, so it needs pads and discs, and that one there spins a lot easier. And that was showing about 100 degrees on the thermal imager. It said in the book the rear pads, or rear discs, have been changed, no mention of pads. And yes, indeed, looks correct. They look pretty new looking. One thing to note, that these wheels were pretty stuck on. You see down there a big pry bar. That was a massive pry bar. That's what I had to use to pry this wheel off. So what this video about, guys, is this isn't a brake job video. I've done 2 or 3 brake job videos on the channel, and I've put in the listing how to do brakes properly. So what this video is about here now is, this is an example of people how they're not doing them properly, and the consequences of those actions. So a simple one to start off with. As you see, if you follow the channel and watch the other videos, I always put a smear of anti-sneeze or copper grease or something around this area here. That prevents that wheel from being stuck on. So if the person gets a puncture on the roadside, they can get the wheel off. It's not about the nuts. The nuts have to be a proper torque, not over tightened. But the wheel actually clamps on, because aluminium, and you can see all the white powder there forming all around there, and that's what jams it on. It jams on in here. You don't need to smear it all around there, just around there, and that means that the punter can get the wheel off properly. It takes 2 seconds to do it, just run it on your finger. So that hasn't been done in this case, and I had to use that thing there to get the wheel off. So, okay, moving on then. So these are the pads that came out of that, and yes, there's a brave bit of meat on them. So there's a good chance that these were changed whenever that disc was put on. So yeah, not too bad, and they weren't stuck in. They weren't really stuck in here in the rear, and that's not what the problem was. But I just decided to check this because I sort of had a bit of an idea that what I was going to find. So this is the brake shim that sits in there, or brake hardware, some people call it. Some people call it brake shims, and that is a mess, as is that one. So they have not been replaced. Clearly see. So, and if we look at the carrier there, just get you in a wee bit. If we look at the carrier, you can see that has not been cleaned up. So these weren't jammed in, but they would have jammed up, no doubt, because this was just an off and on. So to change that disc, the guys would have had to have this caliper off. So slider pins are okay, they move about, but I'm going to take this off, clean all that up properly, replace that brake hardware, and I'm just going to put these pads back in again because they're dead on, and they've already worn into that disc surface. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to redo these back and do them properly, and a bit of grease around there. So it's the left rear caliper, and just done on the nuts there. And pull the caliper off, set it aside. It's very light, that wee aluminium carrier, and these pads are nice and free. But yeah, they will be nice and free, right enough, because there's no spring clip in the bottom. So spring clip is at the top okay, but it's missing, hasn't been put on. So there you go. Back to the front right here, this is the one that was cooking and is a bit sticky on it. So what happens is, whenever the temperature comes into it, as you know, heat, it expands. So everything expands that wee bit, and that's what whenever you can start getting all those noises whenever there's heat actually goes into the brakes. If I drove this car right now, there wouldn't be any noises out of it, and it would seem fine. It's only whenever I took it for a good drive, I drove it up a hill and then down a fairly big hill, and plenty of braking forces, and then put the thermal gun on it, and that just showed me right away where the problem was, without having to take any wheels off or nothing. So I was able to contact the customer and say, you have a problem with your brakes here. So there's a bit of meat still left on those pads. So I don't know when they've been changed. There's nothing in the history. And we'll just have a wee look. The make here is Brake Fit, which is sort of like an economy. They're dead on. They're okay pads, They're sort of like an economy pad. So these have been changed at some point, clearly. But the problem is, if these bits here aren't cleaned up, and you want to really put new brake hardware or brake shims, whatever you want to call them, in there, you want to change them. You can clean them up, but you just order them with the pads. Very rarely does that come with the pads. Even the expensive makes, very, very rarely does that come with the pads. You have to order them separately. Well, in this country anyway, that's what I've found. You can't clean them up, as I say, but you need to do something with them. You don't just bait the pads out and bait the new set in. That carrier will have to come off and all cleaned up. New brake hardware back and front I'm going to do on this, and new pads, new discs here at the front. Now, there is another curveball. The slider pins could be seized, or the piston could be seized, and it mightn't be that they're jammed in at all. So as soon as I get this caliper off, we'll see whether these pads are actually jammed in or not. So here we can see uneven brake wear. So there's more wear here than there is in this pad. So that's the piston side, and that's the other side, the floating part. So this has been doing a lot of braking and not so much. So right away we can tell that this one here has been pushed in, no problem. So that's telling me that the slider pins are probably okay. I'll just do the bottom one to be a bit out of shot. But slider pins are alright, because that has been doing all the braking here, and that one not so much. So we can see that's pretty well jammed in there. I'll have to just prise that out with the screwdriver. It will come out okay. And this one here is moving about. So I just need to test the piston to make sure it's free enough. Okay. So I'm going to test this caliper. So if it's sitting on top of the disc and a couple of screwdrivers in there, just to make sure it doesn't fall. I would hazard a guess that this should be okay, because it has, one pad has been doing the brake on the outer pad. We can see the wear on it there. But what we're going to do is I'm just going to put a wee bit of pressure on the brake pedal, make sure this piston moves. If you're going to do this, I know this sounds obvious, but it's so easy to forget. As you saw in the previous clip, I had the one of the rear calipers off, so you don't want to push the piston out in that. So I just put that back on again, just sitting on there at the rear. If you're going to press the brake pedal, make sure all the other calipers are clamped or still or put back on again. Right, so that moved alright there. So we're going to push the piston back in again, and what I like to do is just give the piston a wee bit of a lube. Now, I'm just in the habit of doing this, and the reason is, if you get the wind back type pistons at the rear, the ones you have to turn, so that the boot doesn't get snagged and gets all creased up. It's a good idea to do that anyway. So I'm just in the habit of doing that, and what that does is give the surface of the piston a wee bit of lubrication there. So hopefully help it in. So one of the brake pads, that outer one that was sort of loose, I'll stick that in there, and we'll give her a push in here. with this wee boy here. This is a pneumatic job. Yeah, it's slow, but it's getting in. It's free enough. I can put a clamp on that, so I'll take a couple of. But it's moving in there quite nicely. Yeah, okay. So piston's fine. Right, so that's it more or less. Push back in. There's a wee pneumatic tool here. You can also wind with it as well. But if you notice, I haven't cracked any bleed nipples here or whatever. What I have done is I've taken the cap off the reservoir, and that's just to allow the fluid to go back up in. Now, there's a few guys out there will probably say, oh, you should pull the bleed nipple, you're pushing out dirty fluid back up in and stuff. Well, yes, that's right. I've been doing it this way for donkey's years and never had a problem. And everybody else that I know anyway does it this way and has never had an issue. If that causes a problem, then you probably have another issue. Or if that piston was exceptionally seized, you may want to you may want to adopt that method and just release the pressure so you're not pushing back on the fluid. But that's the standard way of doing it. That's the way everybody does it. So it's down to preference there, but I've never had a problem doing it that way. And that's the piston pushback there. So with that pushback, that clears the way there to give that a good old wire brushing and a bit of a blow air line, a wee bit of brake cleaner. That'll be that caliper ready to go. If the carrier hung up there on the spring on a hook, and they're dead handy ME hooks, they're very cheap, they're only like $5 for 2. And if you notice, I have the screwdriver stuck into the vents in the disc. The reason why I do that, and this is before I take the carrier off, I'm going to pull this screw. So this is a and there's another one there. So this is an Asian car, so I would suspect these are JIS screws, and these are the ones that give a lot of people trouble on Hondas, and they end up drilling them out and all. And I've showed this before in the channel, but it's just a recap in case you're new to the channel or you're not aware of this. We're going to use the proper screwdriver to crack these. So I haven't loosened these, or this is not a setup here. This is real life. So I've showed these in the channel before. These are Impacta. Getting a shot for you. Impacta Japanese industrial standard screwdrivers. I think this is a size 3. This is the largest one I have anyway. So we're going to stick that in there and we just give it a turn. There we go. That's that one. So the screwdriver up here is to stop the disc from turning on me, and I always do this here before I take the carrier off, because you use the carrier to help you to do this. And there we go. That's them two out. So if you haven't seen them before, that's JIS, Japanese Industrial Standard, and everybody ends up buggerizing these what are called crosshead screws. These are not Phillips screws. They're crosshead screws, and they fit perfectly onto the end of that screwdriver. That is not a Phillips screw, and that's how everybody ends up ringing them screws, and they end up having to drill them out and all sorts of nonsense. So that screwdriver, I'm not selling any of these. I'm not affiliated with them. Don't ask for links, usual. So this is called Vessel. I bought these on Amazon from Japan, from Osaka in Japan, and you can actually it's an impact driver as well. That's why it's called Impacta. So you can strike the end of that, and it'll turn on the handle. So there's a mechanism in that, and it'll turn it. And these aren't expensive. They're only about at £10 or £12. And I have a couple of sizes. This is the largest size I have. I think that's a size 3. It doesn't say it anywhere on it. What I do wish they would have done with this is if they had to put a hex here on the shank, so you could have put a spanner on it. So, but there's a good grip on the handle. If I can get this thing to stay in focus, it keeps trying to focus on the disc. So So there you go. I've showed them before on the channel. They are brilliant. I can't say how amazing they are. If you work on Asian vehicles, this is a Kia, so this is from Korea. But any Asian vehicles, Japan stuff, obviously, they use crosshead screws. I know that everybody has bother with these crossheads on Hondas, and they end up drilling these out. They can't get them out, and they end up ringing them and all sorts of nonsense. You get the right tool, it's a gift. So here's a carrier bracket off with a fending pad, and if we look closely, we can see there. So it rests on that surface there, not so much that wee bit. A lot of people concentrate on that wee recess, and you need to do that too. But there you can see there's that flat there is where it's sitting on. So any of these style that have these spring clips in them, it's absolutely essential that you clean these recesses out. And in this case, it's actually that surface there that is the contact for it. So I'll be putting new brake hardware in this, and there's that brake fit. That is actually the brake fit is a cheaper version of APAC. So they're made by APAC brakes. They're very reputable. I'm not slagging these pads off in any way at all. The difference is these won't last as long as the parent APAC brand. So this is their sort of economy brand, APAC's economy brand. But they're, they comply with all the standards and all that there. But I know that these won't last as long. So if the punters want to spend an extra wee bit of money and you get the APAC pads, they will actually last longer. Now there's a couple of things you could say about that. You could say, well, if you have a pad that's in there a long time, you'll get a lot of build up of dust and stuff, and it'll maybe by the end of its life it'll jam up, and you may be better putting a pad in that wears out a wee bit more. If you put a pad that is very durable and is very hard, it'll something has to wear, so it'll wear the disc out more. So some of the racing pads that people put in, like Mintax and stuff like that, are very, very hard. You can feel it on the pedal. It's very hard. And most OE manufacturers like Toyota pads are actually very soft, so they don't wear the disc out just as much. So it's all really up to yourself. And you can see this is as a result of the heat there. See if we can get that in there. You can see the pad material starting to come away from the back plate, so that and then starts to crumble. So that's the heat that's done that, and you can see the sort of red tinge of it as well. If I have a look at the disc, you can see the red of the disc there. Well, that's been cooking. The thermometer showed me it right away, just by walking around the car of what was bad and what was good. So. But always change both sides. Always change both sides. Only last thing to do before, as part of our preparation, is we need to clean that hub up. So we're going to put a new disc on. We don't want any fouling. So if that isn't nice and smooth, you can get what's called disc runoff. So it's pretty obvious. So we need to go around that with a wire wheel. The ones without the studs are a bit easier to do. The ones with the studs, you can actually, I think it's APAC, sell an attachment that has a hole in it, and you can get in around the studs. I don't have that, so I put a wire brush on the end of the air gel, and I can get in around there as best I can. And even if I have to, I'll dress in around the studs by hand with a bit of emery paper. So there you go. As I said earlier on, this is not a brake job video. This is what you get if you don't do the brake job correctly. This is what you end up with. This is the end result. So I'm gonna clean up all the back ones, the ones that appear to have been changed quite recently. These haven't been changed, but they've jammed up, and it's absolutely essential that you follow the procedures that I show in other videos, and that's the reason why you do it. There's a lot of garages and they're not cowboys. I'm not going to slag anybody off, but there's a lot of garages don't go to take the time to do that, and the reason is economy. So they're competing for business, and then it's all about time. So somebody, I had a customer one time, and he said he went to a garage and they were looking 40 or 50 quid or something to change brake pads, and he said, "What? That's far too dear. That's a joke. Just to take brake pads out and put new ones in." So he didn't realise that there's more to it than that. And I says, if they're charging any less, they're not doing a proper job. So that's where we're at with it. You have to weigh up cost with time with quality, and if you cut corners, this is what you end up with. So it's long term. You maybe have to charge a bit more. Guys have to charge a bit more. And to the owners and to the punters, they just see the cost and they think, oh, he's too dear, I'm going to go elsewhere. But that's what you're up against in this game, and there you go. If you want a job done properly, you have to pay for it. But there you go. So hope you enjoyed the video. Maybe it's a wee bit more insight into doing brakes, and this is what you get sometimes. So I think that's it. I'm gonna clean all this up, do all the preparation, order up the new parts that I need, and this car will be good to go. I'll be recommending to the customer that in a short period of time to do a full service, and if she get it like a regular regime going, and with she knows, she maybe has a wee bit more confidence in than the other people that she went to. So no fault of the owner at all. She's relying on other people. So anyway, I've rambled on for long enough. Many thanks for watching as ever, and all the best. Bye bye.